everyone. It's Vaishali from InnoServe and warm welcome to everyone for attending this webinar. It's indeed pleasure to host the webinar on the future employment scenario and employability skill in e-commerce industry. As we know, we have industry stalwart from HR Fraternity to share their views in today's webinar. Before starting the session, let me quickly share the guidelines of webinar. This webinar is a live webinar with industry expert from HR Fraternity. The webinar will be recorded and will be shared to you through email as well as it will be posted on Digital HR social media handles. Regarding your question and answer, you can ask question in Q&A section which is shown to your right side of the window. We will try to address them as much as possible. For any issues, query, question and challenges, you can find the contact details in Q&A window. Please feel free to have conversation there as once the webinar starts, we will not able to pause it. Hope everyone has set and now we are ready to begin the webinar with 500 participants so far. Let me hand it over to Mr. Rahul Jain, MD of InnoServe Group and Director of Digital HR. He will set the context of this webinar. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Vaishali. Am I audible, guys?
Yes, sir.
It's indeed a pleasure to open this evening full of knowledge. A lot of disruption is around us. E-commerce industry is in focus, and I think we have the galaxy of stars with us to help us unfold a lot of situations that e-commerce industry is dealing with. We have with us Miss Runa. She's going to take us through all the gamut of the employment scenario and employability skills for e-commerce industry, along with the esteemed guest that we have today. I would like to throw a little light on our community initiatives at InnoServe. InnoServe Group has this focus on communities, which was very important stakeholder and a pillar in the organization strategic build. We thought that by building communities, we make our business much more approachable. At the same time, we build the thought leadership, help people, then only asking for business with people. So we have come a long way already. It's been 5 years of this effort in which our academic community ASMA has gone a long way. It is one of the largest community right now in the country, and we work closely with governments and many different stakeholders on that end. Digital HR, which came into being last year, is now close to 6,000 plus members already, white labeled members, those who actually consume all our content, all our messaging, and we get very encouraging response from the member community. The feedbacks are also very encouraging. It gives us more strength growing by the day. So a small step that we took last year has already come a long way. I would like to actually just place my thanks and mention of all my sponsors and supporters in putting up this show together, because without which this couldn't have been possible. So let me start by thanking PTI first. So PTI has been one of our key partner in a series of initiatives that we have. This is the second event in the series, and Runa is the face in there. So with Runa, we plan to have industry-focused initiatives. We have been, in fact, requesting Runa to take some larger roles with us in the ongoing journey of digital HR. Welcome Runa and PTI, as knowledge partners. Then we have with us our own, small unit called InnoServe Solutions, which is our learning partner. InnoServe Solutions, in fact, is operating in corporate arena for last 6 years, 7 years, in fact, and have been handling critical training interventions. We would like to welcome Kovid, the employer branding partner. The kind of work Kovid is doing is very commendable with some of the top global conglomerates and multinationals today. I would like to also welcome, Orai, our robotics partner. Their innovation in AI in HR is one of the interesting thing to look at. I would like to then welcome ASM and ASM XZ. Dr. Bakshi is here with us. They have been actually one of our constant supporters. They have helped us execute few good projects before, and we look forward to this partnership firming up further. Last but not the least, my academic community, which has always brought good dimension to the HR community. So we have ASMA. So this is a small, family initiative, I would say. But both ASMA and digital HR on the two ends actually make this very, very interesting. So with this, I actually, hand it over to my Vice President Chandan Anand to talk about, the star speakers that we have. Over to you, Chandan.
Yes, thank you so much, Rahul, for this wonderful setting of the tone of what we are and what we are doing. So now, without wasting much of time, I would love to introduce all our key panelists today. So to start with our moderator of the day, Ms. Runa Mehta. She is an highly experienced business and HR management leader with 2 decades in a diversity of sectors such as ITS, NBFC, manufacturing, retail, corporate education for the leadership development, digital transformation in HR. She is the esteemed founder of PTI, which empowers startups to develop HR products, processes, and people. Ms. Mehta is also a business consultant and coach for startups and SMEs for their upscaling with the right expertise. Her knowledge and training during these sessions results in businesses to build capability through business transformation projects for both corporate and academia to ensure the business growth. Ms. Runa Mehta has also won variable accolades in the field, like winner of top 50 influences by SHRM, APAC MENA 2019, amongst top 30 social media influencers by SHRM 2018, and amongst 101 women social media influencers 2001 and 16, among top 100 innovation HR leaders by the World HRD Congress 2017 and 18. So it is a very proud moment for us to have Ms. Runa Mehta as the moderator of this session. Now I welcome you in today's session of e-commerce, where we will be discussing the future of employability scenario and employability skill. Our second speaker for the day is again a veteran in the HR industry. He is Mr. Hari TN. He is the Vice President in HR from Big Basket. He is an IIM Calcutta and IIM Madras pass out with 32 years of rich experience in management and HR operations. He has been a significant part of multiple startups, scale-ups like Daksh, Vatsuta, Amoa, Research, and Taxi for Sure. He spent the initial 11 years of his career in various engineering and project management roles before setting foot in human resource domain. Apart from being an excellent HR professional, Mr. Hari has truly been an exceptional multitasker in his life. He is an co-author of Saying No to Jugaad, The Making of Big Basket by Bloomsbury, Cutting the Guardian Not India's Quest for Prosperity, Cut the Crap and Jargon Lessons from the Startup Trenches, and Freelance Communist of the for HR Men, HT Men, I'm sorry. He is an advisor to organizations like Roctian, Crescent, Neo7 Solutions, Unfound and Samagra.com, and Chandigarh University, a faculty member of Your Story Education and Harappa Education, and a mentor to Techstars and Silicon India. I welcome Mr. Hari TN in today's event.
Thank you.
Our next panel for the day is Mr. Yuvraj Srivastav. He is the Group CHRO from MakeMyTrip.com, an HR professional with 20 big years corporate HR experience and 5.5 years of experience in Indian Armed Force as commissioned officer. Mr. Yuvraj Srivastav, an MBA student from IMT Ghaziabad and a graduate in psychology from Allahabad University. He has been the HR leader role from almost 12 years and currently leads the HR for combined entity of Make My Trip, Goibibo, and Redbus. He started his career journey with Asian Paints, where he handled welfare and people engagement initiatives, which also overseeing the laws governing and working conditions and the employee relations. Later, he became the Director HR and VP HR of Oberoi, the New Delhi and PepsiCo India, respectively, where he was responsible for handling employment lifecycle, building culture of proactive IR atmosphere, strategizing people processes, and manpower planning, and ensuring business growth. We welcome you, Yuvraj, in today's event.
Thank you.
Our next panel speaker is Mr. Girish Menon. Girish is the HR head at Swiggy, India's largest food ordering and delivery platform, with over 15 rich experience of HR across the BFSI sector, Citigroup, and HBFC and other organizations, retail and e-commerce startups like Flipkart. He is responsible for aligning people practices to drive profitability and growth at Swiggy. Prior to Swiggy, Girish was with Flipkart, where he led the HR for first mile vertical of supply chain, designing and executing business goals through people practices. His expertise lies in setting up HR processes for scaling startups, managing stakeholders in matrix organizations, driving key people practices and organizational development interventions across multiple locations and cross sections of employees. With a hands-on understanding of employment laws, Girish holds a bachelor's degree in engineering and law and PGDBM in HR from Xavier's Institute of Management and Entrepreneurship, and is an executive coach for Neuro Leadership Institute. We welcome you, Girish, in today's event.
Thank you.
Our next panel speaker is Mr. Ankush Arora. He is the Senior VP and Head HR from Gophers, with 20 rich experience in the various HR domain, including the talent management, organization design, learning consulting, and recruitment processes. He is armed with a diverse experience in multiple industry sectors. A chemical engineer graduate from NIT Rourkela and PGDBM from XIM. Ankush currently heads the people operations at Gophers as a senior vice president. Prior to Gophers, he was associated with some of the leading organizations like Heavens India, Jubilant Life Sciences Limited, SAP Labs, and L&T Infotech Limited, to name a few. We welcome you, Ankush, in today's event.
Thank you.
Our next panel speaker is Ms. Amla Avasthi, VP HR, India Mart. Handling multiple diverse roles across the HR functions like talent acquisitions, performance management, employee engagement, and HR automation, Amla is an exemplar of dedication and commitment. She has a rich experience of 17 years in working in the HR sector. Ms. Avasthi is currently heading as Vice President at India Mart. In the past, she had worked with companies like Info Edge India and V Customer and played a key role in managing their recruitment processes. Her notable recognition includes overseeing entire pan-India technical campus hiring, spearheading the corporate initiatives like internal employee satisfaction, implementations of HRIS system, and talent management of over 1,700 employees across pan-India. We welcome you online in today's event.
Thank you, Chandan.
Our next panel speaker is Mr. Sujit Das Biswas. He is the CTO from Orai Robotics. He is an evangelist in the field of AI, NLP, and RPA, a certified robotic process automation expertise, and Google certified in AI and NLP expert. Helped around 500 plus customers to design and build processes automation their businesses, helped organizations to build business strategies and intelligent project selections, created strategic portfolio framework, trained various CIOs, CTOs, RMOs, and PMOs. With the rich and diversified experience in the field of technology, we welcome you, Sujit, in today's event. I hope you will bring more light in today's session.
Thank you.
So with that, we also have our key speaker, Mr. Prakash Bakshiji. I'll be introducing him with a thank you note at end of the session when we are through with the roundtable discussion. I would now like to hand over the mic to Ms. Runa Mehta. Ma'am, please take over the session for the roundtable discussion.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank Digital HR team for organizing a special event. And this is definitely very exciting that we have a great conglomerate of eminent speakers. And the topic is, surely something we felt is very contemporary, which is a future employment scenario and employability skills for e-commerce industry. So thank you, Rahul, for opening the session. Thank you, Chandan, for setting the stage. And thank you, Ritesh and entire Digital HR team to enable us to conduct this session today. Here I have few data points which I would like to share with the audience. India is known for its large population at 1.37 billion. It's one of the most inhabited place in the world. Still, of its billion plus people, internet penetration is quite low, coming in at 41% of total population, roughly 500 million of the 1.37 billion in the country. So we are really looking at the penetration, which is expected is much lower. Why am I sharing this data? Might be a question in the audience mind. The fact we are dealing is to relate with online business, which is well established in India. And every day some or other new player is taking a plunge. Though a major contribution to its growth is provided by e-commerce industry, even so, not many of us understand the intricacies involved in e-commerce industry. Despite the low internet penetration, the e-commerce sector in India is still massive, thanks to the population size though. It was worth US dollar 48.5 billion as of 2018 and is expected to quadruple to reach US dollar 200 billion by 2026. I was reading an article recently that even as some business slashing headcount, others are sticking to their hiring plans or even stepping up recruitment. E-commerce, logistics, and e-services companies find themselves in particularly in urgent need of workforce. We have industry mentors, HR gurus with us today who would throw some light on these challenges, these success stories, which will help our audience to learn and utilize as some possibilities. And maybe we will get some use cases to benchmark and implement some of those best practices in the organization they belong to or the academia to curate their, teaching and students to learn what's happening in e-commerce industry. So with that, I would like to invite our keynote speaker, Mr. Hari Tien, Head HR Big Basket, to open the learning session today. Over to you, Hari.
Thank you so much, Runa. I think, this topic about employment and employability in the e-commerce sector is pretty interesting. But what I would do is I would just take a step back a little bit and talk about the employment conundrum for India as a nation itself. So I think, India is a very youthful nation. So the rest of the world has grown pretty much old. China, Japan, Europe, US. I think India is just one of the few large countries which continues to be remaining youthful. 12 million youth entering employable age every year. 12 million youth need to be found jobs. If you can't find jobs that are meaningful for this group of people, then you might have, crime going up, you can have unrest, you could have a lot of problems on hand. So I think this issue of whether India is going to have a demographic dividend or it would be a disaster would depend upon how we are able to deal with this youth of India, 12 million people who are entering the employable age. Just to put this in perspective, the whole of the IT sector in India, after 25 years of existence, has created less than 5 million jobs, 5 million direct jobs. And 12 million are entering employable age every year, and these people need to be found jobs. And unfortunately, India has had a history since independence of laying a lot of emphasis on education over skills. So, as they say, China got old before it got rich. I would say India got educated before it got skilled. So I think there's a lot of emphasis on getting a degree. People are crazy about getting a degree. A degree in Kannada literature or political science in Hindi is far more important for people than learning plumbing or learning carpentry. So I think the entire education system over the years has resulted in some kind of a situation where we are able to send Chandrayaan mission or Mangalyaan mission, but are not able to build roads that don't waterlog during the monsoons. So I think it's very important going forward to figure out how we are going to create these skill-based universities, How are we going to, make skills far more important than traditional education and get these number of people good and meaningful jobs? My own belief is that if you deploy the entire savings and capital that India generates every year, you can't create more than 1 million high-paying jobs, because high-paying jobs are very, very capital intensive. Therefore, a large part of India will really be the blue worker category. Typical Big Basket or a Swiggy or a Grofers, mix of employees where 80% would be blue collar and 20% would be, white collar. And that's going to be the employment mix, like it or not. I'll just switch a little bit towards, coming to e-commerce. I think from time to time, different industries have acted as employment engines. For some time, it was manufacturing, then it was IT. But I can see clearly, at some point of time, it was physical retail. But now I think e-commerce is now stepping in as a big job provider. I think there is some bit of confusion often also about what is really e-commerce. So, for example, does a Lufthansa Airlines or an Indigo Airlines qualify to be an e-commerce company because you can book your ticket by going to their website or the mobile website? The answer is they are not, e-commerce companies. They're airline companies. But for example, if a Walmart or if a store like an eZone creates a website for you where you can go and place order for their products, do they become e-commerce companies? My own answer is no. So what is really an e-commerce company? Why is Big Basket an e-commerce company? Why is Flipkart an e-commerce company? Why is, for example, Ola or an Uber e-commerce companies? So I think the way I would define an e-commerce company is that the entire process of placing an order for either a service or a product has to be online. Therefore, a Make My Trip, for example, you can go online and book your tickets or book your hotel rooms. So that is a prerequisite. Going online, having a website or an app to place an order and make payment for a service or a product. The other component which needs to be fulfilled for a company to qualify as an e-commerce is that the way the service is delivered or the product is delivered should be very different from the way a traditional company in that space delivered that same product or service. So for example, a traditional taxi company did not deliver a service like the way an Ola or an Uber does. A traditional retail company did not deliver grocery like the way Big Basket would do, including the supply chain. A traditional restaurant would not deliver or provide food the way a Swiggy would do. Swiggy changed it from providing, eating at the restaurant premises to providing it at home. So I think these are two qualifiers for companies to, qualify as e-commerce. So I'll quickly go to my 1 minute summary. I think Runa was very specific that we talk about some of the skills that e-commerce is calling for across the board. So I tried to think of this and found it very difficult to identify what are some of those skills that can cut across all industries in e-commerce, all companies in e-commerce. I could broadly think of three categories, very high level skills. So I think that e-com companies tend to be a little more innovative because innovation is critical. So for example, if you ask me, retail as an industry, about 3 to 5% was, market share was by e-commerce companies. 15 to 17% market share is, held by modern retail, and the remaining 80% is by the small mom and pop kirana stores. Going forward, this 3 to 5% market share of e-commerce companies will move to 15 to 20%. And this market share will come at the cost of modern retail and the kirana stores. So getting from 3 to 5 to almost 17 to 20 needs a lot of disruptive breakthrough innovation, being able to think very differently, think out of the box, being very agile. So I think innovation and innovating at all levels in the company, all functions, ability to work in a very collaborative manner, creating that ecosystem for innovation, I think is very critical. So innovation, I think, is a very critical competence. The second broad critical competence of people practice, I think, is being able to execute strategically. So I think all of these organizations have grown extremely rapidly. So if they don't execute strategically, the wheels will come off and the business won't be sustainable. They won't make the right choices. So I think being able to execute strategically is a key competence. And the last one is, of course, being able to, do the daily grind well, which is put the right processes in place, right training mechanisms, right audit mechanisms to deliver a service in a consistent way over millions and millions of transactions. To my mind, these broadly are, the skills required. And in terms of e-commerce, the way COVID has hit, I think depending on the underlying business, some e-commerce companies have been impacted positively, some very negatively. I think Big Basket typically has been impacted positively because grocery, it continues to be important, is always going to be important, and physical retail stores are no longer easily accessible. People don't want to travel out, so online grocery has become a big thing. But in Make My Trip, I think Yuvraj will speak about it, but clearly any of these companies, travel has come down significantly. So some e-commerce companies will see a hit. So I think the way this crisis has hit all of us is it has hit companies differently, and within e-commerce itself, it has hit each category very differently. With this, I think I'll close and give it back to Runa.
Thank you so much, Hari. It was so beneficial, I'm sure, for the audience, because most of the time the questions are asked largely that what are the skill sets we require. So thank you for outlining the skill sets like innovation, capability to execute strategically, and also ensure there's a daily grind. I think that was very useful. And of course, today's job market looks increasingly pessimistic day by day. So business expansion plans have been replaced by business continuity plan. In many cases, as industry, the whole transformation has happened. So how far that is true and how it is really impacting us. So I would request Yuvraj to share his speech and also the experience with the audience. Over to you, Yuvraj.
Yes, thank you, Runa. Thanks a lot, and thanks to the whole organizing team for inviting me. It was great listening to Hari. I think that Hari has set that tone very, very correctly, and I think that he has really brought out clear distinction in terms of how e-commerce companies are different from other companies. So I think let me try to build onto it, and maybe bring in a bit of more flavor of how one should look at careers in the e-commerce companies. So I think if you look at Runa and Hari will agree, and all my friends on the panel will agree. Take yourself back 30 years, 40 years, right? All those who were still there, and perhaps they had some sense at that point of time. So I was definitely there, and I could clearly make out that at that point of time, huge focus of employment was on industries, manufacturing industries, and how companies are working. They are churning out products and all, right? If you go a couple of decades back, you will see that the biggest employer or the employment provider started happening through ITS companies, right? Wherein you have a lot of call centers started off, people joining, bachelors joining and earning money, night shift, evening shift, morning shifts, and all that stuff. Last, if not a complete decade, I'll say 6 to 7 years, because I joined Make My Trip in 2014, and it's 6 years. And I know that when I joined Make My Trip, it was not so prominent, right? When I left PepsiCo, there was a colleague who was joining Flipkart before I left PepsiCo, and I asked, where are you joining? He said that I'm joining Flipkart. I mean, what is this company, Flipkart? So he said, like, no, I think they are going to be the future of the industry and all that stuff. So I think I remember that at that point of time, e-commerce had still not taken off. So last 6 to 7 years, if I look at, I think the whole employment scenario is going to get governed and has got governed around e-commerce companies. And now second aspect is that this will continue to happen. And with this COVID coming in, I think there's going to be a huge fill-up to the whole e-commerce process by every company. In last couple of years, I'll not take the name of the companies. You'll realize that a lot of companies were in hardcore retail or hardcore brick and mortar have also started doing their digitalization. So I think that future for next at least 10 years, I clearly see that is going to be in the field of digital businesses, which are to a great extent loosely called as an e-commerce company, right? So I think that will continue. What is also important is to understand that e-commerce companies does not really mean tech and product. And I think that point Hari alluded to when he says that 80% of the workforce is blue collar and 20% workforce is tech, product, and all that stuff. So that primarily means that these are not the companies which are only dependent on the technology folks. There's a huge amount of machinery which is a last mile execution, also in terms of sales, business development or the contracting, who are in the field and is still working like any other company. So I think employability in this sector should be more looked at as an organization you get in, and if you have a skill A, which is non-technical skill, can that organization also provide you another opportunity when you develop your skill, maybe in an area of digitalization? So I think it's the whole benefit of e-commerce career is that you can get into this company as a non-techie. You can spend time in that organization. It can also provide you an opportunity to closer to the digital acumen, digital skills over a period of time. So it offers plethora of opportunities, right from the last mile execution rider till the data scientist. And what a great place to really make a career. What a great industry to really be there and build careers over a period of time. So that's very, very important and distinct for people to understand. So important is when you're getting these industries, please build a skill which will allow you to get into this. And now once you get into the industry, Runa, now the beauty of e-commerce industry is that when you get inside the industry, your success is not always defined by the skills what you bring to the table. It is at this point of time, the whole focus shifts from your functional skills to your temperament, your behavioral skills, your overall ability to adapt with the organization, which becomes far, far more critical than you being an engineer computer science, or you being a data science skill set, or you being a great in terms of the strategy or HR professional or a investor relations. Those skills are important for you to get into this. But success in these industries is defined by very different set of skills or the competencies what you bring. So say around 30 years back, when I would have joined any armed forces around 27 years back, I think it was a very different world. When I came in 97 to Asian Paints and joined manufacturing industry, I knew that what skills I need to be very strong in terms of labor laws. I need to be very, very strong in terms of handling union relationships. I'll somewhere succeed. But now it is very different. And what my understanding has been that when you get into these industries, there are a few things which you need to really be very, very focused about. And that's how it is different from the past. One is that you don't join an e-commerce company if you are not strongly connecting with the vision of the founders and the organization. Because everybody connects with the vision of the organization that, yes, Swiggy has an ability to really create a complete disruption in the food delivery business. Make My Trip has a ability to create a complete disruption in the travel patterns of the Indians. So if you don't connect with this, I think that you will never feel at home in these organizations. That's one part you need to really build in. Other thing what I feel is also important is that when you come into these industries, your degrees are on one side, your functional skills are on the other side. You have to be very strong in terms of ability to work hands-on. You need to be ready to do every sort of a work, right from a delivery to strategy to finance to HR to managing people. If you want to succeed, it's important for you to be really on ground, hands-on, ready to do everything, dirty your hands in the process, and that's how you will grow. So that's another skill which I look at very important for people to have on the functional skill side. Third is, a lot of people join organizations thinking that I'm getting into a very process-defined industry. E-commerce, loosely also called as startups, will have processes only for the maintenance and hygiene. These are the organizations where the processes are loosely defined. They can only enable things, but they can't become a constraint in the delivery, as compared to old institutional organizations wherein the processes are God. Here the processes are not God. Here the delivery is God. And you need to be able to really work accordingly without violating something which is sacrosanct. Be happy and capable in that environment of a bit of ambiguity. That's very, very important for anybody to succeed in these organizations. I think other thing what is also very important, which is another 2 points I'll cover, is one, startups a lot of times work on the frugality. If you are in the habit of working with a multi-billion conglomerates, or if you feel that you can go and start getting a cabin after 3 years of service, and best of the facilities, perhaps that's not the place for you to be. I think that you need to bring in that frugal mindset to work and develop and skill up the organization. That's very, very important. So on the skill set point of view, what I'm trying to say is that, in last 5 to 6 years, industry employability has changed. E-commerce is not only tech and product. E-commerce has a plethora of career options. You need to have one skill set to get into these industries, and you can be comfortable of coming out of this industry after a reasonable tenure by developing skill sets and developing exposure and having exposure in different fields, sort of a thing. And when you get into these industries, besides functional skills, your success, unlike previous times, is more defined by the behavioral skill set and temperament what you bring to succeed, rather than functional championship. Those are some of the initial thoughts, Runa, if I have to really bring in.
Very nice. Thank you so much. It was very directional and also a lot of action points you have given to the audience, especially how they can look into the industry for its nature of disruption towards also creating a rigor by dirtying their hand and ensuring that besides understanding the process is important, but ability to work in empathy and how do they really look into career option, and it's not absolutely going to be rosy picture. So that is the beauty of the this industry. But I think we are all hungry to learn more. So now going from travel industry to food industry, as Hari has already put forward the whole tone. So let's hear from Girish, and then definitely we're too excited to listen to Ankush and Amla, but let's hear from Girish what your thought is and what your experience, audience and learn on.
Hey, hi, thanks. So yeah, I think great points by both Hari and Yuvraj. So it's going to be very easy for me to tell +1 to both of what they said. I'm going to add very little to what they mentioned. I think it is going to be important for people to be ready to take a lot of chaos in startups, right? So chaos is here to stay because there is the whole business is moving at rapid pace. Things change on a monthly basis, right? The companies I worked in, banks, we had 3-year plan, 2-year plan. When I came to startups, it was quarterly plans, right? So the whole annual operating plan is broken down to quarters, and we're typically looking at disruptions happening on a quarterly basis. So people need to be very, very clear that if they're getting into e-commerce, they need to have a big heart and a strong mind, both, right? So only then e-commerce is going to be a good place for folks. So I'll touch upon certain soft elements given Hari and Yuvraj were touching upon that, because hard skills are pretty common across industries, like I would believe, but the application of those skills is going to be different in startups. So some points were covered earlier. Something which I strongly believe is if you need to be in startups, like Runa used this word, everything is going pessimistic nowadays. The ones who need to look at startups need to be highly optimistic, right? So optimism is going to be one competency that I would believe that people should develop if they have to be successful in startups. So optimism in my head is believing that there is one more solution which is better than the current one. So just being a lot paranoid, I call it positive or productive paranoia about the fact that what we're doing today can always get better tomorrow. And that uneasiness is very important for a person to do well in startup. And I also liked the word Yuvraj used in terms of temperament, which is very important in startup. I completely believe that's a very important aspect to do well in startup. So for the students and academicians on the call, Dhoni is like a great archetype for a startup, right? Because he's as cold as ice. He's pretty calm in any situation, but he's always having this unrest inside. There's always a positive paranoia on what do I do next? Right? What can I do next ball, or next over, or last over of the T20 match? Can I give it to a new bowler and still take a chance? There are a lot of things which is happening inside his head, but he's very calm at the outside, right? So that's very important in the startup to have that temperament, and I call it optimism. And Hari and I were sharing a panel yesterday and I was using this term there as well, which is from our Sanskrit text, which is called dhairyam. Dhairyam is translation in English is brave. I think people need to be brave as well in startups, because a lot of things will come and hit you. Like Tyson mentioned, you always have a good plan until you get punched on the face, right? So in startup, you tend to get punched on the face every day. You wake up thinking a day is going to go in a particular fashion, then there are 100 things happening, right? As in, you wake up and you have a plan, but then suddenly there's a strike in one of the warehouses, or people are unhappy about something you've done. There is an issue in the field. It could be some from the lobbies, or some from the authorities. A lot of things can go haywire in a day, and it's important for one to take it with a lot of fighting spirit. So being brave is going to be very important for folks in startups. So these are a few of the soft elements that I can think of, which is going to be a differentiator for people who are looking at building a career in startups vis-a-vis large organizations.
Thank you, Girish. I was quite engrossed and listening, and I actually was, kind of reflecting when we're talking about the optimism is the key and how do you create the productive paranoia. I think we will go back to now an industry within industry, which is to do with groceries. So Ankush, so over to you, and we are very keen to learn from your experience, and you have a very good combination of multi industry experience. So maybe we would request you to relate to your current and previous one, and give us a complete, holistic perspective. Over to you, Ankush.
Sure. First of all, Runa, thank you for putting me in a situation like you have, a batsman walking in at number 5, and you have 3 great stalwarts of the industry. They've played a century level innings, and I have to fill up their shoes, which is an extremely difficult task. Right? But I
thought you were a Javed Miandad. You are going to put the sixer and ensure India wins.
I've left that for Sujit to take care of it. So I try to just take cues from what Hari, Yuvraj, and Girish have mentioned. So on the specifically, I think Hari beautifully defined what are the e-commerce categorization looks like, and what companies are e-commerce. From an employment point of view, I think I'll just add on to it. When an e-commerce firm, or for that matter any other firm, actually generates employment, it's not just an employment generation or a position open in isolation. There is always an upstream and downstream towards it. Like in an e-commerce, there will be a supplier system, there will be a vendor system. So for every job that an e-commerce company creates, right, there are always 4 to 5 or even more jobs which are created in the downstream or upstream of an e-commerce platform. So that is where I think e-commerce is really fueling the growth in terms of job creation in this country today. And I think Hari very correctly mentioned that earlier it used to be some BFSI, IT, ITES, right? They've all had their stints, and I think right now this is the time for e-com companies to step up, and they're doing it, and to create more and more job opportunities within the organization, and as well as in the upstream and downstream. From an employment point of view, I think 2 domains very categorically stand out for me, and I think Yuvraj also mentioned. One is the supply chain part of it, because I don't think any e-commerce company can survive without supply chain. Right? The success of an e-commerce company today actually lies on the whole supply side of it. Right? You can generate demand. There is enough smartphone penetration in India, but the whole, and I'm being very specific to the sector that I belong. Without an efficient supply chain, without an effective supply chain, no matter how much demand you generate, you will not be able to sustain. Second piece would be the technology piece. In terms of, we talk of digitization, we talk of automation, we talk of differentiation. And today, as we go on serving more and more consumers, we want to have, more share of the pie. I think technology will play a great differentiator in terms of, how do you differentiate one organization from another, or even how do you differentiate between an offline and an online player. So these are 2 areas where I see a very, very bright future. As you mentioned that, the job market is a bit, pessimistic or not looking that great. But I think for these 2 domains, it's definitely an upswing. And in fact, this is the time where most of the organizations will and should invest in, strengthening these two functions. One is the supply side of it. Second piece would be the technology piece. From an employability point of view, I think all three of them have covered most of the generic skills that we will need in a startup or an e-commerce organization. But there will always be a demand for subject matter expert. You will still need your technical and functional skills, right? Your degrees or whatever you want to call them. But I think few things, as Hari also mentioned, agility, innovation. Now, apart from that, I would like to focus on 4 key things. One would be that ability to take risks, e-com firm. And as Girish also touched upon, there's a huge pace at which you work. We are looking at high growth organizations. Business models are changing quite frequently. Your decisions keep on changing, right? So your ability to take risks and your ability to experiment without the fear of failure is one comfort level that you should develop. Second would be how comfortable an individual is with dealing with ambiguity, right? So in our kind of sector, there is like I can relate to it that I worked in some of the very old brick and mortar, very process established organizations. For doing everything, there is a protocol, there is a standard operating procedure, well drafted for 62 pages, 3 volumes. You have to go through it. You log a ticket, gets done, right? This is not something that you will see in a e-com firm or a startup. That is not going to happen. So your ability to deal with ambiguous situation, your ability to thrive in chaos is another softer area that you would require in a upcoming employee if you want to hire in your organization, or people who are interested to join the e-com organization. Third would be more in terms of problem solving. So it ties down with what Girish mentioned, that people needs to be hands-on, right? So you don't look at people from a point of view that compartmentalization of functions. Like I am in HR, I will do these things. I am in finance, I will do these things. Are you good enough to solve a problem for the organization, right? Either as an individual or through a cross-functional or a collective effort, right? Last thing would be in terms of ability to unlearn quickly. A lot of people, and this is especially for people like me who were onboarded into this e-com bandwagon from organizations which are like extremely process oriented. So we had to unlearn a lot of things to settle ourselves in the organization. So adaptability to a very chaotic environment, ambiguous environment, your problem solving, your ability to take risks, and how quickly you can unlearn and learn new things. These for me are the 4 key skills that you would need in any e-com specialist that you want to onboard. More, because of this COVID thing, these 4 or 5 behavioral skills, and I think Yuvraj also mentioned about temperament. Temperament and behavioral skills will be a lot more in focus as compared to your technical and functional skills. I would even say that you would actually go 90% on 90 upon 100 on the technical and functional skills, but you will not compromise on behavioral skills, especially the COVID and the post-COVID era. These are some of my initial thoughts, Runa. Back to you.
Thank you. It was a great opening remark from each one of you. And I was also thinking that when you talk about the segmentation, I mean, Ankush talked about the importance of understanding the whole gamut of supply chain and of course technology, and we do have a technology expert whom you actually said he should be the Miyadat, that is Sujit. But at the same time, I guess we are also looking at the segmentation of the e-commerce industry, wherein the B2B element is very important, and we have an expert from that segment, which is Amla Avasthi. So Amla, I think we would love to learn from your experience, and you spent reasonably 6 years in this organization. So it would be a great opportunity to learn from you and your practices and how you have gone through the whole scenario. So I request you to share your thoughts.
Thank you, Runa, and good evening all. I think Hari, Yuvraj, Girish, Ankush, all of you have summed up pretty well. Everyone from the service industry and here from the B2B section. The first thing that comes to the mind is definitely e-commerce has its own beauty of innovation, and not just innovation, as we all are experiencing, it needs a very speedy work. So that's something that you need to be on your toes all the time. Every day there are changes that happens, and you need to adapt it as and when it comes. This industry plays a very vital role in terms of generating the employment opportunities. And when I talked about, there could be various fields here, could be merchants, could be sellers, could be craftsmen, and all of this makes a big impact in the entrepreneurial mindset and the startup culture that we talk about. With this COVID situation that's come in, it has created a lot of shift in the change in the mindset that each one of us had it. I want to just go back and reiterate one of the points. When demonetization had occurred, all of us used to carry cash a lot. But suddenly that was a trigger when it came in the change of the mindset. So had it been you go to a small rediwala or to a small shop, each one of them had a scanner card and you need to pay it online. I think that was a shift mindset when people started accepting it pretty beautifully. And with this current situation, yes, I don't think so any one of us would have stepped out to buy even a grocery from any shops or anything, and we would have leveraged the best of Amazon, Flipkart, ordering food from Swiggy or anything. So that's how e-commerce has been doing it pretty well and flourishing. On the other side, if I talk about in the e-commerce industry itself, the growth makes a lot of impact. So it's a socio-economic growth which is reaching to the interiors of the country right now. You talk about online shopping, online payments, you talk about ecosystem that's been built completely. It's purely more wherein technology has come in a place and also people have adapted it completely. If my own experience, if I have to say, there are a lot of trainings which would be required, which talks about digital trainings, like we have suppliers onboarding program, we have a lot of customers which are there, wherein the field sales people used to go meet them, teach them as how they have to manage their entire task. But the beauty that comes up is now that we are making a hands-on complete savvy system wherein we don't have to physically meet these people, but these online training programs are going to enable them completely in managing their complete business. There are a lot of enriched products which have come in. So when we talk about roles, each day those roles are changed, those roles are redefined. There is redeployment of roles which are also being done here. So as what Ankush was saying right now, that all of us should accept that change, should accept what is coming across to us, and then take it on beautifully. No longer it's gonna be similar methodology of old school thought processes of having traditional way of working. What is going to happen is there would be a lot of change that will come in each one of us. When we talk about specifically in the HR professionals, there would be a lot of counseling roles that would be developed, and these would be specialized skilled roles wherein we need to enable our internal people, make them strong enough so that their performances are perfect. The business needs to change its mindset completely in terms of as how to manage the entire customer line, how to manage the entire vendor processing, how to manage the entire digital trainings that needs to be done here to the people. What do we need to do in motivating all of these platforms? If I talk about the technology front, yeah, I'm sure we need PHP developers. We need 1 or 2 skilled technology that is required. But I think with this changed mindset that we have it right now, no longer one skilled technology would work. With the innovation of the combination of technologies along with a different skilled learning will definitely be more in demand to all of us. Two things that comes to me to my mind right now with the current employability skills is all of us need to really change the mindset here. For example, when the offices were open, we all used to look forward to have those physical meetings, having those one-on-one discussions. But I think digitalization has changed that mindset completely. Work from home earlier had that mindset in us that it's not going to work. It will not be functional to some industry. It is good for few of them into consulting firms, but organizations wherein it's service industry, it's B2B, not function. I think it has changed completely and it has come up so beautifully. Rather, it's more productive in the current scenario. So I think two things. What needs is change, accept it, and innovation. That's more important for any one of us that we talk about. Thank you, Rona. That's all from my side. Over to you, please.
Very impressive. I think your anecdote about, accept the change and make it inevitable. And we all know that there is only one thing is constant, which change. We are so excited. Loads of questions are coming from audience and super intelligent questions. And please, all of you get ready for them. But before that, when you talked about, Ankush talked about technology, you talked about completely changing from traditional method to new method, new normal. So I think none other than Sujit can highlight how that is possible through technology, AI, and many other. So I won't steal the thunder. So Sujit, over to you. Bring the technology side to us and enable us.
Thank you, Rona. Good evening, everyone. Going anywhere. So if we go anywhere today, the essence of AI is spreading in every sector. Starting from if you go to toll tax collection on highways, automobile industry, identifying a potential COVID restricted zones. Even today, helping the attendee for today's webinar, AI is built in a strong niche that this is hard to restrict. In fact, according to the survey done by Gartner, AI in e-commerce is gonna boom in such a pace that the revenue is expected to reach around $36 billion worldwide by 2025. It's a quick question. What do you think today? How many opportunities you had to interact with an AI in daily basis? Well, I'll say more than anyone can guess. Starting from online shopping to 24/7 customer care support, AI has made everything flawless. Even time you tend to interact with an app that remembers what you are searching or what you bought, there is a chance that you are part of this tool. This is how AI has enhanced user experience in e-commerce sector and brought it to the next level. If I broadly talk about what's the next booming AI tech, it's purely a voice assistance. We all still using Google search for comparing products, prices while shopping. Now the trend is changing. In the age of Alexa, Siri, shopping your favorite product is just one voice command away. Just say, Alexa, buy this for me. Alexa, let you enable a shopping at your cheapest price. And if you ask me how this is possible, I'll say there are top technologies around like Google Assistant, Alexa from AWS, Siri from Apple can be your personalized shopping assistants at home, in addition to all the messaging bots which we are using. Voice assistants are the new technology allowing users to communicate with web services using all over the voice command. The technology can be interacted or binded with your smartphones, which specifically designed to have a voice conversation. According to Google, I'll quickly give you a statistic. Around 30% of all the search across the voice today is done by a voice search. So if you really want your business to stay in, the shrinking boundaries of the competitive market, then this is the time to jump into voice conversation and communication. So if I talk about, the other factors of technologies which is mostly used in e-commerce industry, is major of them is creating customer centric visual search. We all know, how important it is when, as a user, when we go to any shopping or a e-commerce website, we went to try to search some product, and sometimes there was a irrelevant search which comes across. That's why AI plays an important role. The NLP, we call it as an NLP. It's basically nothing called, it's a natural language processing capabilities, which improvise and understand what the user is looking for, and based on that, it gives you, the basic visual search results. The technology, the next gen technology like chatbots, personalization, providing recommendation to the customer, automation, sales forecasting, intelligent searching, and retargeting potential customer with AI is the next trend which is going currently in all e-commerce websites and technologies. Now, to cut short, those days are gone when we were doing, one-on-one selling on doorstep or doing a doorstep selling. Now, the content marketing and influencing marketing is basically diluting. With superior technology and innovation in the marketing strategy, without a doubt, artificial intelligence development companies or innovating companies are the face of e-commerce at this tough time. Even by hiring all the AI resources, I'll say resources currently working in e-commerce industry, in marketing design, changes the way to deal with the current scenarios. As Hari was mentioning, our traditional skill-based education needs to be evolved, and having an innovation way of education. Yuraj was talking about the functional skills. Girish and Ankush was talking about the productivity. Amla was talking about the digital performance and the latest technology. AI is gonna be the next trend or the technology which gonna stay in this market and evolve and help our customers to move forward. Back to you, Runa.
Thank you. I think I completely endorse when you say that AI has happened a decade ago and it's going to stay for for a very long time unless something again a disruptive thing comes in front of us, and our audience is enjoying that outcome. Possibly even they don't. The majority of the segment may not be user of bots and sophisticated, platform. But end of the day, if they're user of Uber and Ola, they'll always be part of that world, right? And very exciting questions coming. Although for all of you, it's a very straightforward question. And what I'm going to do, because our intent was to put you all in a roundtable discussion, and you bring in a very, very strong background, and people are going to learn. So first question is as simple as from the recruitment side, and it would be great if all of you put forth your views, and I'll keep on sharing the questions, and please go ahead, whoever feels that the question you would like to respond to. So the very simple but very important question from the audience is, what can be the employment and recruitment scenario during current pandemic? I mean, it was probably obvious that they would like to about current scenario of COVID-19 pandemic. So how do you all respond to the area of recruitment when you're talking about current scenario? So Anyone can start.
Yeah, Runa, I can would like to address this very closer to my heart. I would say recruitment, because that's how I started my career, and I think that's in blood in me right now. I think with these talent acquisition strategies, whether you talk about pre or post COVID, whatever you have it, they're going to be completely transformed now. And the biggest myth that is being busted is that what I said is the work from home one. It actually works. So many of people who are like individual contributors, single mothers, who can't come as a full-timers and would want to come back to the corporate world and want to contribute to the industry, I think going to play a very vital role with this shifted profile. When we talk about the skill set requirements, yes, of course, there would be such roles which would be evolved quite a lot, and that will go forward. Recruiters would also need to establish the fact that applications which are coming to work from home needs to be taken up pretty seriously. And actually having this setup would allow them to work without any disturbance, without any distractions, and that would be a beautiful amalgamation of utilizing their own skill set, putting it across to what the organization is looking forward for, and take it on here on. I think there are a lot of insecurities, questions coming to everyone's mind as what will happen, how will the selection procedure come in. I think Sujit's technology is going to play a beautiful role here, because you talk about a selection procedure, it's going to save a lot of bandwidth in terms of pre-screening the resumes, getting those online technical tests or non-tech tests for both tech and non-tech roles. That is going to save a lot of bandwidth and time, and we will be able to pick up the right talent for any role that any organization is looking forward for. So I think it's the best time for all of us to utilize it when it comes about onto the recruitment side. Not just recruitment. I'm sure there would be a question coming on what will happen to an onboarding. I think all of us have started doing it online, giving up the preset, defined schedulers, getting them trained online, and then putting them across onto the job line. So I think this is going to help a lot.
Yeah, Amla. I think we are going to stay with the recruitment piece. We'll go to the onboard a little later. Rather to the next question I would put to.
Can I just add to this, Runa?
Yeah.
Yes, I'll just
please,
take one minute. I think that let's not shy away from the reality that recruitment and hiring is going to be on a slow pace for next 3 months or 4 months or 5 months, and that's the reality. In the industry and in the overall economic cycle, what happens after every 6 or 7 years, you'll have a jolt wherein organizations who have gathered flab because of the evolution or the fast growth, they will get into the process of removing their flab. And that's how this, layoffs or the retrenchments or the downsizing and all starts happening. You'll not see it in the bigger organizations. And after that, again, the process of building workforces starts. But there'll always be a gap of 1 year from the time any such incident happens to the time when again things starts picking up. So we have only entered around 1 quarter in that recession of employment. We will continue to have that recession in employment for next 2 quarters. All those who are still hiring, they are hiring very cautiously and judiciously. I'm not saying that jobs are not there in the market. There are some organizations which are hiring. I was talking to some of the people who are doing well in this in the current scenario. Hiring is happening, but a lot of organizations are not hiring. Swiggy will not hire, but Swiggy will hire in case it needs. We will not hire, but if we need certain positions, we'll hire. We have done our all manpower planning, budgeting, costing, everything. How are we looking at keeping our manning in next 2 to 3 quarters in place? So hiring will happen. but it will not happen at a very fast pace. So the advice to people would be that if you have a job, if you are doing reasonably well, please hold on rather than really getting too adventurous, because things needs to settle down in the job market.
So dovetailing with the response from Amla and Yuvraj, I was just relating to the next question on the similar line and wanted to request Hari to respond that given the impact COVID has had on employment, how do you see this phase deciding the talent in coming future?
So very difficult question. I'm not really sure. First of all, I've completely understood the question because I really struggle with some of these. So how will it decide the future of talent? I am not really sure how will it decide. All I can say is that COVID, like any other crisis, has eventually led to a recession. Recession in turn has led to a large number of job losses across several companies. There are very few companies that are continuing to hire, and as Yuvraj mentioned, that many companies are also using this opportunity to cut down on flab, because during rapid growth they acquired a lot of flab and they're using this to cut it down. So I think gradually, I think what the COVID also has done, to my mind, is that it has permanently, almost, at least for the foreseeable future, increased the idea of social distancing, which means that at factories, at the warehouses, at restaurants, you cannot see people crowding. So I don't know whether many industries are going to bounce back. So for example, the airlines industry, the tickets possibly could be 3 to 4 times as expensive as they were pre-COVID, because the flights will only be running 20 to 30% full occupancy levels. So I don't know how they will even run the flights for a long time to come, train travel. So I am not really sure in terms of how long it will take to bounce back in terms of overall impact on employment. I don't have a very clear answer. I mean, I'll be lying if I say I know something.
Any comment from Girish, Ankush?
Yeah, I think I would actually add to the previous point as well, to what Yuvraj was saying, right? I think this is a period of Atmanirbhar, like our Honorable Prime Minister mentioned. I think all of us are trying to be self-sufficient and preparing for a longish winter. So there will be austerity measures, we will keep it low. So what people need to do is stay positive in this time, because like any crisis, this shall also pass. But what this has done uniquely different is this whole digitization acceleration, which has happened, right? So I think people who are digitally handicapped, please start looking at it more closely in terms of building those skills there, because it's a good time for you to upskill. Any skill that you couldn't learn because of lack of time, for whatever excuse that you had, it's a good time for you to pick skills as well. So if you have a job, hold on to your job. If you're getting better jobs, then no problem, please go ahead. You're one of the lucky few who are getting it. But don't get too adventurous in this time. So if you can build your skill, stay positive, invest time in improving yourself, I think next 2 quarters is going to be useful for all of us.
Anyone would like to comment? Otherwise, I'll take the next question.
No, I completely agree. I think that what Girish is saying, and we can't really predict when things will improve. I will only say that things have started inching towards recovery in terms of business as well as sentiment, right? How we started in the month of March, April was worst, May was still bad, June we have started reconciling, July will be further slightly better. So 3 months down the line, I think sentiments would be different. I don't know because of what reasons, whether it's because of tapering of the curve or our ability to really fight with the COVID better. But yes, we can't really be in this cycle for very long. 2 months down the line, things should really start looking slightly better in terms of everybody's confidence around hiring, movements, and all that stuff.
Thank you. That was very encouraging. And I think what Girish mentioned about upskilling and ensuring that you take this COVID on your right side and start learning. So the next question I'm going to ask Ankush is, what is HR's strategic role in creating a digital platform of online learning going forward? So Ankush, would you like to throw some light?
Sure. I think I'll just take the cue from Girish. He mentioned about the push for digitization. Like we've always been struggling with automation and digitization in HR space or in general in organization because of whatever reason. But I think what has happened during this crisis is that there is a inherent push from within the organization. Like people are now wanting more and more processes to be digitize. And I think in my books, how do I define digitization will be not just mere automation. It has to be backed by a lot of data-driven decision making. So automation plus database decision making is digitization for me. Very specifically to L&D, I think with Amla touching upon the remote onboarding, remote recruitment, right? And we are in for a remote working scenario in a longish future, as we all foresee. And whether it is going to be 6 months or 1 year or 2 years down the line, I think the concept of social distancing, the concept of remote working is here to stay. If not 100%, maybe 60 to 70%, it's going to have an impact on how organizations function. So yes, definitely there is a need, there is an urge for automating and digitizing the entire learning space, right? Because I think organizations will not stop learning. They should not stop learning. The ability of an employee to learn new skills will be more important than it has been ever before. So there has to be a push on a digital space for learning, for digital space for employee development or talent management. That is a given. It has to be there. And I think that will decide the future of the organization as well as the employees. How organizations will differ from or differentiate within the sector or differentiate across the sector. I think this will be a big push, and technology again will play a very vital role.
Thank you. I think we are going towards the end of the session. We have a couple of minutes for possibly taking last question, and I would request each one of you to comment. The question would be put forth to Sujit from technology side, whereas as a user side, I would request each one of you to comment. And that would be our last one, then we'll hand it over to the organizer for concluding. So what is the role of CRM in e-commerce? What basic skill sets required for handling CRM in current scenario? So Sujit, will you start, and we can pick up points from all our eminent speakers, and you all then requested to give your parting comments before we hand it over to DigitalHR Group for conclusion.
Yeah, and definitely. Now, as Girish was mentioning that, automating and digitization. So there's a very significant role which is going to play in the future technologies, that the upskilling towards the technology is more important. Because as we know, the standard and the current scenario, how technology is getting adopted. And the social distancing is going to stay now for a longer time. And the remote workplaces will be staying for a longer time. So this is the time where we need to adapt the situation and move towards better and upskilling of our skills towards automated subjects or automated, upskillings, or I will say a technology upskills. So when it comes to impact on the skill set respectively for different CRMs, it plays a very, very vital roles. Because this is the situation where we in is currently gonna be impacting major employees, where we think that we need to currently make our skills and increase more productivity, because organizations is looking towards the productivity index. So this is the time where all the employees currently should focus upon upscaling their skills.
So either comment as a user of CRM, or you make a choice that you want to give some parting words to the audience. Each one of you can take turns.
Okay,
so
if you want me.
Yeah, Yuvraj, why don't we go? Yeah.
Go ahead, Girish.
I was saying, see, CRM fundamentally is not going to really change, right? As in, what is changing is where we had this, we were dependent on individual skills earlier, and some level of anecdotes. I think this is going to create a large digital footprint, because everyone is now interacting digitally. It's going to create a large digital footprint. So your ability to understand the customer is only going to get better. It might not be personal, it might be impersonal, but it will be more deep. So it's important for people to understand those patterns and start interacting with the consumer. Now, whether it's your direct consumer or whether it's a restaurant partner, you're only going to get more information about them because of the digital footprint that they will leave. So I think that skill is going to be important to really read that pattern and execute. I actually think the sensitivity to the consumer will only increase because it's all going to be further remote. So you'll have to be even more better at dealing with consumers. That would be my comment on CRM. From a larger parting note, I would say that from a HR perspective, I think we should move away from being egalitarian to more effective as HRs. We're happy to distribute rewards like Santa Claus. Now we need to be more effective as HR folks to really see and go after impact. I think we should be more profitable than palatable in whatever policies we make as HR. And we should be more people-led than process-led, because process will be taken care by all this digital, etc. But you find who are your champion leaders or who are your champion performers, and really start giving them enriched jobs and start taking punts on people, because these are the ones who are going to take you forward, right? From an organization perspective. So my parting comment would be sensitive, be sensible, and be savvy. Wish you all good luck.
Thank you. Yeah, Raj.
So let me just, since the whole conference and the discussion is on employability, so let me give a formula to everyone, a framework which can really be used for looking for an opportunity or evaluating the opportunities and options in this COVID time. There's a framework of 6 L's. L's is an alphabet, and the 6 L is level, location, Luca is money, longevity, leader, and learning. So every opportunity anybody gets should put on these 6 L's. And if you have 4 or 5 being hit, you should think of taking it. If it is 2, then I don't think you should. And most of the time you'll find 3 to be really matching. So in terms of employability, I think it's very important for you to really not be very adventurous. And even if you want to really change and look for an opportunity, please look at this framework. It will help you take decisions.
All right, Hari, would you like to share some parting words?
Just only 1 or 2 lines, which is, I think, a crisis is not really the best of time to, to cultivate good habits. Good habits need to be cultivated during the good times, so that during a crisis they could stand you in good stead. So a crisis is not the time to figure out, I need to start learning, I need to start doing this course, new skills. I think good times are the time when you need to cultivate these good habits. That's my
Thank you, Hari. Thank you. Sujit, would you like to add something, or should I?
Yeah, definitely. If for our audience, I'll say that the tough times is actually passing by. Now we are moving towards a market scenario, or a positive market scenario, I'll say. Optimal market scenario, where things are moving slowly, but in given couple of quarters, the things will be in place. So I'll say stick to where you are, whichever profession you are. Don't try to be innovative too much, and just increase the current skill sets which you are having.
Thank you. Amla, there was a question from audience regarding women leadership in HR. So I'm humbly requesting you to give at least one liner on that.
Quite an important one. I was surprised as if now it has not come up. Thanks for bringing it here. It's very important and it plays a very critical and a vital role from the women employment point of view. Rather, I would say I have seen a lot of change in the mindset wherein a lot of entrepreneurs have come in, especially from the women's side, who would want to explore new ventures, do a lot of things, and want to do it from home, because this is the best time that they could have explored, either using any of the social media platforms or venturing into any of the corporate sectors. So, and they're good multitaskers, I would say, because they know how to manage it pretty well, being the housewife, being a professional in any field that you talk about, tech, sales, servicing, operations, support functions, anywhere. So I think it's more important for all of us to be little more wise and smart enough to take small moves further. Coming on to the CRM side, I would say we all of us need to breathe in and breathe out now with this, because that's what it's required in any of the industry that we are into. Would like to sum up with a note by saying only two things. This time too shall pass. It's not going to stay for a longer time. So stay motivated and be positive. That's it. I'm sure everything will fall in place slowly and steadily. It will come back.
Definitely. And I think now, Ankush, you need to give us that winning score, which I said sixer, with your concluding point, and we are keenly waiting for you to give us that winning point.
So I think as all the panelists have mentioned that it's a difficult time. We all agree, and let's face it, and let's be positive around that. This is going to pass for sure. I think like our customers, like our consumers, we need to reach out to our own team members, our employees, right? They are also anxious. And I think very specifically for us as HR fraternity, as HR leaders, this is one thing that we need to inculcate within our organizations today is the sense of empathy, sense of kindness, and sense of appreciating people. While Girish mentioned that, we should be more effective, in all agreement with that, but I think that sense of empathy with people, reaching out to them, bringing in that positivity in people. If somebody is feeling down, let's lift that guy together. For me, that's the true role of HR today in this scenario. I completely agree with everyone. This will pass, right? We will all come out of it as much stronger as an organization, as an individual, as a fraternity. And this is a tough time for HR to revisit its approach towards people, right? We've been all molded in a classical HR approach, but I think this crisis has forced us to revisit that. And I think we will all come out of it much, much stronger, much, much effective.
Let's request Dr. Bakshi to step in. Dr. Bakshi?
Okay, thanks. It was a wonderful session. I do hope that the participants included some of the faculty members of different institutes and colleges. And the best thing they would have learned is that you can have an excellent presentation without using a PowerPoint presentation. You can make very potent points. Thank you for the panelists for making some wonderful points. And the biggest thing that you have all mentioned is, and although the seminar or the webinar, as we call it now, was focused on e-commerce businesses, whatever you have mentioned also is equally applicable to the so-called non-e-commerce businesses, the retail, the manufacturing, because innovation does not just belong to e-commerce. Innovation is today required everywhere. Getting things done. In fact, you have all mentioned that e-commerce and startups are not a place where you just follow SOPs. In fact, you use words like chaos. And what you are trying to say is that you have to build your own SOPs in that chaos. And every day that SOP may change, because the ultimate thing is get things done. That is the goal. We are not here to follow processes. We are here to get things done. And that is what I think every manager is expected to do, whether it is in e-commerce or anywhere else. The manager's job is to get things done, not follow a process. If he finds a difficulty, it is not to blame other departments. I mean, you have also all focused on the time has gone to work in silos. This is HR, this is finance, this is law, this is manufacturing, this is shop floor, this is marketing. No, we are all now into a collaborative mode. And that collaborative mode, I think, depends on how you collaborate with others and how you upskill yourself to become a more collaborative person. So if you are an HR person, learn finance. If you are a finance person, try to understand entrepreneurship mindset. If you are an entrepreneur, try to find out how strategies can be built. When you talk of a strategy, the right hand says it is sustainable strategy you must have. The left hand says it should be a disruptive strategy you must have to capture the market. So what is sustainable strategy and what is disruptive strategy? You have all talked about e-commerce is all about, I mean, you have talked about the upstream and downstream. We have all talked about the supply chain and logistics. I mean, these are the areas on which I think all businesses today will depend. whether they are in manufacturing. I mean, when manufacturing requires a back end and a backward integration and a forward integration, you require supplies there also, and whenever you produce something, you have to market it also, whether it is on e-commerce platform or in the traditional mode. So the important things which you have mentioned are innovation, the problem solving approach, executing strategically. Definitely the most important thing you have said is adaptability, how you adapt to changes, and these changes could be very frequent. These are definitely the issues on which we have also shortlisted these issues. And in fact, in executive education, we run programs on negotiation, because when you talk about the backend B2B, as Runa mentioned, B2B supply chain is practically B2B. How do you negotiate with people? How do you manage your finances today when the 2008 crisis came, or it is today because of the COVID? I think cash has become an issue. How do you manage cash, and how you use your limited, how you leverage your limited cash for the future? So how do you run your finances? How do you have your strategy, the sustainable and the disruptive ones, as I mentioned? How do you understand the entrepreneurial mindset? Because ultimately we have been talking about startups. I think all companies need to remain in that mindset as if they are startups, even if they have become very big. Because if you start thinking, I have already become big, you are already dead. So that entrepreneurship should never go away from our mind, from our heart. I think these are the very courses that we run in executive education. I do believe that we will have time to interact on these issues further to build our skills. I think the parting note from everybody was, use this time to build your skills, and let us all join together to build up our skills so that tomorrow will be better. Yuvraj had been mentioning that, well, April, May was bad, June, July, something better is likely to happen. My own sense says, as a student of economics, that from September onwards, things should become normal, not only because we would have adjusted to whatever has happened, but also by September end, all the migration of labor, etc., which has taken place. The entire Kharif sowing would have been over by September end. And despite the forecast by the India Meteorological Department that rains are going to be a little short of normal, they are going to be fairly evenly spread. And if that happens, our food security would have been taken care of immediately, and people would have money to spend. They would have the safety in their hands, and perhaps that would bring the migrant labor back to where they were building the nation and making India Atmanirbhar. So thank you once again, our enlightened panelists, Mr. Hari, Mr. Srivastav, Ankush, Amla, Girish, Sujit, and thank you, Runa, for excellent moderation of the session today. So thank you once again, and thank you all our partners from InnoServe, Orai, ASMA, and everyone. So Chandan, thank you for organizing this. Rahul, thank you for organizing this excellent webinar. Thank you so much from my side.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bakshi sir. Wonderful moderation, Runa. You started on time, and exactly as per the schedule, we just ended on time. So great session it was. So stalwarts from the e-commerce industry in one platform and talking sense on an apt as per the session topic which we decided is employment and employability. I guess it went very fine. Everybody participation was apt, and everybody stick to their defined timelines. So great. It all depends on how a moderator is taking this session forward. So congratulations to you too.